Welcome to our in-depth exploration of a critical question. Who bears the brunt of a warming planet? As climate change accelerates, its impacts are not felt equally across the globe. In this video, we will examine how low-income communities, developing countries, and vulnerable groups such as indigenous populations, women, children, the elderly, and coastal communities are disproportionately affected. We'll also highlight the plight of small-scale farmers, migrants, refugees, and the wildlife that share our ecosystems. Join us as we delve into these pressing issues and uncover the stories of those at the forefront of this global crisis. 1. Low-income communities. Low-income communities often find themselves on the front lines of climate change. These neighborhoods are more likely to experience extreme heat, flooding, and poor air quality because they lack the financial resources to combat or adapt to these challenges. For instance, when a severe storm hits, wealthier areas might have the means to rebuild and fortify, but poorer areas remain devastated for longer periods. The lack of green spaces in these communities exacerbates the heat island effect, making summers unbearably hot. Moreover, inadequate infrastructure means that floods have a more pronounced effect, often leading to prolonged displacement. Without access to proper healthcare, the health impacts of poor air quality, such as asthma and other respiratory illnesses, are more severe. These communities need more support to build resilience against the changing climate. 2. Developing countries. Developing countries, especially those in Africa, Southeast Asia, and parts of Latin America, face significant challenges due to climate change. These nations often lack the resources and infrastructure necessary to cope with natural disasters. For example, a drought in a country heavily reliant on agriculture can devastate its economy. Floods can wash away homes and crops, leaving communities without food or shelter. Rising sea levels threaten coastal regions, where many of these countries' populations reside. The financial constraints of these nations mean they can't invest in adaptive technologies or infrastructure improvements. In contrast, wealthier nations have the means to protect their citizens and economies from these impacts. Developing countries are often left to fend for themselves in the face of a warming planet. 3. Indigenous populations. Indigenous communities are often deeply connected to their natural environments, making them particularly vulnerable to climate change. In the Arctic, melting ice affects traditional hunting grounds, while in tropical forests, deforestation and changing weather patterns threaten food sources. Coastal indigenous communities face rising sea levels and storm surges, which can displace entire populations. These communities have lived sustainably for generations, but climate change challenges their way of life. The loss of biodiversity affects their cultural practices and traditions. Furthermore, their voices are often marginalized in global climate discussions, leaving them without a say in decisions that directly impact their futures. Protecting indigenous lands and respecting their knowledge can be crucial in the fight against climate change. 4. Women, particularly in developing countries, bear a disproportionate burden when it comes to climate change. In many societies, women are responsible for securing food and water, tasks made increasingly difficult by changing climate patterns. Droughts and floods can mean longer journeys to find water and food, taking time away from other responsibilities. Women often have fewer resources and less access to education, making it harder for them to adapt to or recover from climate-related disasters. Cultural norms may restrict their mobility, limiting their ability to escape dangerous situations. Despite these challenges, women are often at the forefront of climate action, advocating for sustainable practices and leading community efforts to build resilience. Addressing climate change requires recognizing and supporting the critical role women play. 5. Children are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, as their developing bodies are more susceptible to environmental stressors. Extreme heat can lead to dehydration and heat-related illnesses, while air pollution exacerbates respiratory conditions. Malnutrition can become a concern when food supplies are disrupted by climate events. Educational opportunities may be lost when schools are damaged by floods or storms, affecting children's long-term prospects. Additionally, Children may experience trauma from witnessing or experiencing natural disasters, impacting their mental health. Protecting children in a warming world requires ensuring they have access to safe environments, healthcare, and education, even in the face of climate challenges. By safeguarding the well-being of children, we can invest in a more resilient future. 6. Elderly people. The elderly are particularly at risk from the effects of climate change, especially those with pre-existing health conditions. Heat waves can be life-threatening for older adults, who may have difficulty regulating their body temperature. Floods and storms pose mobility challenges, making it harder for the elderly to evacuate or access help. Healthcare systems, already stretched thin in many areas, may struggle to provide necessary care during extreme weather events. Limited mobility and social isolation can exacerbate the challenges faced by seniors, leaving them more vulnerable to climate impacts. Communities need to prioritize the needs of the elderly in their climate adaptation strategies, ensuring they have access to resources and support. By doing so, we can protect a generation that has contributed much to society. 7. Coastal communities. Coastal communities are on the front lines of climate change, facing threats from rising sea levels and increasing storm intensity. Low-lying island nations and coastal cities risk being submerged, displacing millions of people. Infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and homes can be destroyed by storm surges and erosion. For communities reliant on fishing and tourism, the economic impacts can be devastating. Saltwater intrusion can contaminate freshwater supplies, posing additional challenges. Protecting these communities requires a combination of infrastructure improvements, policy changes, and community engagement. As the climate continues to change, coastal areas will need to adapt quickly to survive and thrive. 8. Small-scale farmers. Small-scale farmers are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change due to their reliance on natural weather patterns for crop production. In regions like sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Latin America, changing precipitation patterns can lead to droughts or floods, devastating crops. Shifting growing seasons can disrupt traditional planting cycles, leading to reduced yields. For many of these farmers, their livelihood depends entirely on their ability to produce food. When climate change disrupts this, entire communities can face food insecurity and financial instability. Supporting small-scale farmers with adaptive technologies, education, and resources can help them build resilience against the changing climate. By doing so, we can ensure food security for millions of people. 9. Migrants and refugees. Climate change is increasingly becoming a driver of migration, as people are forced to leave their homes due to extreme weather events or deteriorating environmental conditions. Hurricanes, droughts, and rising sea levels have displaced millions, creating a new category of refugees often referred to as climate refugees. These individuals face numerous challenges in their new locations, from discrimination to legal barriers that prevent them from accessing resources. The journey itself can be perilous, with many facing exploitation and danger. Host communities may also struggle to accommodate the influx of new residents, leading to tensions and conflict. Addressing the needs of climate migrants requires international cooperation and comprehensive policies that protect their rights and provide support. 10. Wildlife and ecosystems. Wildlife and ecosystems are profoundly affected by climate change, with rising temperatures and habitat loss posing significant threats to biodiversity. Ocean acidification and extreme weather events disrupt natural processes, pushing many species toward extinction. As species disappear, entire ecosystems are destabilized, affecting the services they provide to humans, such as clean water, air, and food. Coral reefs, which are vital to marine biodiversity, are particularly sensitive to temperature changes and are experiencing significant bleaching events. Protecting wildlife and preserving ecosystems is crucial for maintaining the balance of nature and ensuring the survival of countless species. Conservation efforts and sustainable practices can help mitigate some of the impacts of climate change on the natural world.